I think whenever a group of humans at work get together, we're still going to be the 1970s coming out. And I think there's a big difference between whether you're the one who plans and executes said office festivity or the one attending. And that's where things can go off the rails.
Welcome to Beats Working, winning the game of events, where we share stories and strategies to turn any event or life moment into something unforgettable.
Events are wild, and the people who work in them are some of the most resilient humans on Earth. If you know, you know.
So come with us behind the curtain for a look at their most memorable experiences.
As they say, the show must go on, so let's get on with the show.
Oh, yes. The office party, mandatory fun at its finest. Whether it's awkward small talk by the cheese tray, I love a good cheese tray, watching a coworker overshare after 3 glasses of Cabernet, or dodging karaoke signups, the Fun Table crew is here today to tackle the wild world of corporate gatherings that are somehow both festive and dreadful all at once. I am your co-host, Libby Sundgren, here with my bestie sidekick, Elise Bryson.
Hey.
At our table, we have our usual VIP crew. We've got Kristen Graham, Amy Liz Harrison, and Deli Downs Cooley. Welcome, guys.
It's the Fun Table.
Amy, I thought you were going to pull out a maraca.
I was tempted, and I do have my balls here, so just in case.
Balls
Just in
up.
case. JIC.
Balls up.
Different party.
Okay,
So,
not
yeah.
the office party. All right, fine.
Well-
This is going to be a fun conversation because I haven't been to an office party in a while.
I
miss
know. I've
office
done a lot of
parties.
Zoom office parties, I feel like, but not many in person recently.
Well,
Not the same.
It's our office parties. I just feel like they're different. Like, you know how we have AD and BC? Like, what do we have the reference from before COVID and after COVID?
PC.
No.
PC.
I think whenever a group of humans at work get together, we're still going to be the 1970s coming out. And I think there's a big difference between whether you're the one who plans and executes said office festivity or the one attending. And that's where things can go off the rails.
So elaborate on that, Kristen, because I agree with you as somebody who has planned office parties and then had to attend my own parties or attend other people's parties. But I want to talk about that. The difference, what you think you're presenting to people, there's usually a curtain and like things you can't share with other people, like what your directives specifically are. What your budget is or is not, which can be a real letdown when you're an attendee coming to an office party, I want to say.
Oh, I completely agree. And budgets have no relevance to attendees. That is when normal, ordinary, employed humans turn into ungrateful early teenagers, where it is like, I deserve 3 of these extras. I once had somebody, I worked in .com, and we had free soft drink machines. And I was walking by, this wasn't even at the party yet, y'all. Walking by, it was a Friday afternoon, had a backpack and was just loading up different sodas into their backpack to go home for the weekend. And I'm like, really, the $5.99, the 24 pack at the grocery store? And it is absolutely that. There's no such thing as that doesn't belong to me when it comes to office gatherings of most types. I've even seen it at philanthropic and volunteer outings.
I mean, you're so right. And not holiday related, but that was one of my kids' favorite things to do when they'd come see me at the office was go pick something out of the free bevy cooler. And that was like the highlight of their trip. And
For sure.
starting early in my career as the party planner and the person responsible for execution, that's where I channeled my inner project management person and mom, being super frugal. Like, how can I create the best possible experience for the people attending the party? on a super tight budget, which meant a lot of work on my side to make those very frugal gatherings something that was enjoyable for all. And I think even more than the party planning, which I don't think everyone really appreciates what goes into planning an event, is leadership. Like parties at work are something, it's kind of that unspoken rule of be seen but not seen. You go and show your face to say that you were there. And working in tech, a lot of the people that I worked with were introverts. So that felt like it was hard for them to come out and engage with people. It wasn't comfortable. So that's where I think leadership creates the culture in holiday corporate party spaces, meaning the right leaders, they're able to come in and set the tone for the group when people are feeling less than engaging and excited about being somewhere. The right leaders come in and they demonstrate genuine engagement and share their own funny stories. They talk to the people that are part of their organization, and they kind of create that space for genuine connection. And if it's not the leader, you've got to have someone in the organization that kind of sets that tone. I remember we did a DISC profile assessment of our leaders. And what we realized was myself and our most senior leader were the connectors. They were the people that were genuinely interested, not that other people weren't, but genuinely interested in asking those questions, connecting authentically, sharing stories with boundaries, because you don't want to overshare at a holiday party ever. And when you've got the right mix of people that do that, that's where holiday parties, corporate gatherings can be fun, because you have someone leading the charge. I don't know. That's just a thought. I think one of my favorite leaders was a general in the military who was not like some of the other generals. He would come in. He was the first person to lend a hand, which by leading by example, he was truly in service to the people in his organization, which made everyone a little bit more relaxed. And it was a lot easier to connect and have fun because you didn't feel like I'm being judged.
Well, I think that's a good point. And also to add to that, an office party, a corporate party, whatever kind of celebration you're planning, it's not going to, save a culture problem. So I think if your leadership is doing that all the time, and if your company is living that all the time, I think that is naturally going to make those events so much more fun and enjoyable for everybody. Because, having a quarterly coffee and donuts is not going to, get 250 people rallied and feeling good and happy if you're doing that 4 times a year and, that's the only time that they're feeling that kind of connection with other people.
Well,
what do you think, Kristen? You've been in
no amount of free beverages or swag is going to create culture. It's the leaders. Are they attending? Your attendance or lack of attendance is also saying something.
If you drink, you want me at your party to give you my free drink tickets. I always make friends that way at office parties. That becomes a whole subculture of that. But I want to go back, and I would like to disagree with Deli's stuff because that's just kind of fun of our respective things. I don't think it starts from the leaders. I think the leaders actually can impede the success of an event at times. And let's be clear, the real leaders of any activity or gathering are the people who are planning it and doing that, not anybody who shows up with a title. And there are some times and spaces where not having leaders present or having them come in, say a quick hello and leave actually benefits the gathering in some places. If these are people who occasionally, quarterly, will send out an email, I don't want to hang out with them for 45 minutes. It all depends on that space. But what is the purpose of the gathering? And if it is for camaraderie, intersecting a whole bunch of org charts is just going to make things as awkward as Thanksgiving with your Uncle Bob, right? And then the last thing I'll say, and I'm very curious what you all have said too, I think the two most important things that go into any type of facilitation is structure and boundaries. It's like having a room full of puppies and no playpen. You need to tell anybody, whether they're coming to your house or to a 2,000 person event in Vegas, this is what it is, this is what it isn't, this is when it starts. And you need to give them that structure, because otherwise they're just going to be free roaming.
This goes back to our episode on the art of the gathering.
Or the decline of the gathering. I'm cracking myself up. But when you have thrown the parties and then have to sit down with HR and legal the next day to review tapes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Ooh,
or you have
see
the very helpful employees who send you a top 10 list of the things that could have been better. Right. And I'm sure we've all, because we've been behind the scenes, are like, thank you for that.
Thank you for
your free swag.
Thanks for your constructive criticism.
Or just criticism.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I just had a feelings check. Somebody else. Thoughts?
Well, I was going to say one of my favorite movies. I don't know if there are any Office Space fans in this present company, but I love how earlier in the convo we were touching on leadership and culture. And man, I think that stuff is tough. I don't work in an office right now, but it seems to me that can be a challenge. And one of my favorite scenes in that movie, Office Space, is when, they've got this like Bill Stein cousin, basically, who's the boss there in the office. His name is Lundgren, I think. Lunghorn, I don't know. Doesn't matter. Point is, he says, you're standing there with a coffee mug, and he's like, and don't forget to wear a Hawaiian shirt on Friday. It's going to be Hawaiian shirt day. And like the camera just pans around and everybody's just kind of like got this lackluster, kind of like unenthusiastic look on their face, except for there's like the one token person, with like the big Sally Jesse Raphael glasses. And he's like, yeah, like he can't wait to wear a Hawaiian shirt. And it's like, you're on your own with that one, like on Lanai, I don't know, but that is my experience anyway. I always feel like I'm that one person who's kind of into the weird side of things.
You're up for it.
The theme.
I'm in. I'll do it.
Well, let's remember from a previous episode, the Tony Danza theme.
If there's a theme,
Amy Liz Harrison is usually behind it. Yeah.
Yeah. Or I'll make something out of at one office party that I attended of my husband's who works for an airline, there was a luggage tossing contest. So they were like taking big suitcases with different weights, and they would like run around as if it was is it shot put? Is it discus? I don't remember from track and field. But anyway, that same maneuver, and then hucking it, and then people would measure how far they flung the suitcase. And I got like all into it. Like that was my favorite part of the entire party. Like the memory for me, the core memory was that game. So I don't know. I cling on to the weird thing.
No, I like that. And I think that's a good, goes back to what Kristen said about being clear about what's happening and the expectations and the timeline. I mean, if there is a theme, make suggestions. What could you wear? If you're not, like we've talked about in our theme episode, of course, if you don't have something, we'll have leis for you to put on. If it's a Hawaiian, themed event, like we have something for you. You don't feel like you need to wear a Hawaiian shirt all day long. If there are going to be games, you're going to be hucking, you're doing shot put with luggage, wear a shirt that you can sweat in, And I say that as just a sweaty I just am a sweater. That's just what I am.
Okay.
And if I'm wearing like cashmere or something, I'm not going to want to play that game because I don't want to ruin my sweater and get pit stains in it and not be able to wear it again.
Okay.
So I'm not going to bring up where Amy's husband works. I just have to say that I am a huge fan of the culture at that organization. And I think that gatherings they can be a culture mirror. They reveal the health of an organization's culture. And I have watched parties intentionally, they either reinforce inclusion or unintentionally create distance. Like that was one of the biggest changes that I saw when I was working in corporate and organizing parties was to include or not to include gifts of wine. And it's not just if you're sober, don't give somebody a bottle of wine. It's if you're giving out gifts to senior leaders and maybe culturally wine is not appropriate for them, then you have just created a moment of distance in your organization versus reinforcing inclusion. Because if everybody else got a bottle of wine and they love it, you're like, yes, I nailed it, except for the part where that one person, because of cultural values, did not want, or they're on a sober journey. Either way, you just set them aside like you gave them a bottle of wine. And so that's where parties can be culture mirrors. It's one that either reinforces those moments of inclusion or unintentionally creates distance. And one of the things that, as a person from the outside looking in, when I attend an organization's party, I love listening to the people who are there. I love hearing their stories and the memories. Like, Amy, that's going to be a core memory for anybody who was at that party. I wasn't at that party, but I wish I was. I mean, that's amazing that you have an activity that's so woven into the company culture. And even if you are not tasked with throwing luggage, you still get to participate. And that's a lot of fun. So I love that. I love so many things about the culture of the organization that your husband works for. And you can see it in the stories when employees share stories about work coming, if they've been at the organization for a long time. I really enjoy sitting and talking to people who are part of that organization and the stories that they share.
One thing I'd like to add, though, I want to go back to something that Libby said to underscore it. We were talking about Hawaiian shirts and all the rest of it. But what Libby brought up, and this is where really good event planners, organizers, or contributors bring such value. And it's saying the things and anticipating elements that may not occur to others. So instead of saying everybody wear Hawaiian shirts, saying we will have a Hawaiian theme and then having leis or props, etc. Festivities should not require homework. If you're throwing an event and people have to go out and stress over something or purchase something or come up with it when it's unexpected, when that is not part of the plan and structure and agenda, that actually is going against the goals of your activity. And I think also back to Amy and Deli were sharing positive examples of activities. You need somebody involved, though, that can give a 360 view, that can come out and say, that sounds really, and I love how Deli said, it can end up being exclusive even when you're trying to move forward, because I'm sitting there thinking through, okay, what about the people who wouldn't be able to lift something like that? How inclusive are we going to be able to do? And what does that look like? And what additional activities? That doesn't mean take away all the fun. I've been accused of everything in my event days, right? But I am a big fan of the ampersand. Yes, and what else can there be? So still have anybody seen those cash booths and all that stuff? Fine.
Oh, yeah.
If that's what lights up, it's so stressful being in one of those, like real story. But
I
you
wouldn't
can
get
still,
in one. So I agree with you on that.
it's a thing.
I
It's
watch
a
it.
thing.
I couldn't get in there.
Yeah,
Well, we'll come
germs,
back to
gross.
that. But my point is, you can still have the things like Deli said, that's a cultural mirror, but what additional elements and outlets can be available? And who is sitting there saying also, what are the additional menu opportunities? Vegan, gluten-free, true allergies, right? What is our stance on mocktails, cocktails, soda, water? You need that thoughtfulness, because I used to joke, and I've done corporate.com events for over 20 years. And our joke is the team was, we should all have t-shirts that just say event staff on the back, and in the front in small letters, no good deed goes unpunished. because no matter what you do, I literally had 2 employees get in a fight over the remaining 2 left shoes of flip-flops for a beach party. I'm like, they're not even an actual set, but that's coming back to this structure and making sure that there are people there to say the things that your employees, clients, stakeholders, or public will not say to you in the moment, but they will sure say to each other. You can congratulate yourself on a very successful event that actually wasn't successful to those who attended. That's the challenge.
That is so true.
Hey, sorry to interrupt. I promise you, we will get right back to this amazing conversation. But first, here's a quick word about classy problems. It's part of our Sidekick Way ecosystem. Take a listen.
Most event problems, not life or death, even though they feel like it. They're classy problems.
Moments when the AV guy ghosts, the keynote's flight gets delayed, or the Wi-Fi dies 5 minutes before showtime.
But a classy problem isn't a crisis. It's your chance to get scrappy, creative, and win the day.
Find yours at classyproblems.com because the show must go on.
And I want to chime in on the alcohol component. As it's no secret, I'm very passionate about rethinking drinking in the workplace as someone who is on a sober journey. And I think we've seen a lot of healthy shifts in events, work-related events, not always having the center focus be around drinking, but we still have a long ways to go. You know, in my experience, anytime someone had a birthday, we all went to the bar across the street. Anytime somebody was leaving the company, we all went to the bar across the street, you know, like, and that's great for the drinkers, but it is very alienating for the non-drinkers, no matter what reason they are non-drinking from. And there was a stat that came out last week or the week before. I don't know. I've seen it so many times now. It's getting a little blurry, but the drinking in America has hit a record low. Only 54% of Americans say that they drink now, which is the lowest it's been since the 1930s. Wow. And so we are seeing this huge shift. It's predominantly being pushed by Gen Z, not millennials, not Gen X, definitely not boomers. It's predominantly pushed by Gen Z because they are opting for different choices and healthier choices. And, you know, we're seeing things like silent reading parties popping up in parks or in cafes. And so, you know, the challenge here for corporate America, when you're thinking about your office parties, is what are you really doing to be inclusive? And what's the purpose of the event? Like, if there's not a purpose, why are you having it to begin with? And I do agree with what's already been said, that it definitely holds up a mirror to the health of the culture, but you don't get that overnight. But unfortunately, you can break it overnight. You can break it a lot easier than you can build it. That's for sure. I think we all
Elise, I
saw
love
that
that
with
you
the,
bring that up.
with the Coldplay video.
Well
said.
I love that you bring that up, because with an entire generation making different choices, making healthy choices, different choices that support their health journey, they are also the individuals that are probably most likely to be unsatisfied at work. I was just working with a senior leader in corporate around their health and wellness scores in the organization. And when you looked at it, the people who had been there for a really long time had high scores. The people who had just started in the organization had high scores. And then there was this group that had just come outside of the honeymoon phase, and they were the younger individuals in the organization, and they were systematically dropping the health and wellness of the organization scores because they wanted something different than the corporate model currently gives. So I love that you bring that up, because if you are a leader in an organization and you're looking at the health and wellness score, and most you measure what matters, and that is something that's being measured in a lot of organizations, the health and well-being score, whatever it is that you call it at your organization. I would be curious, if you were watching this episode, if you went and looked, who are the people? Is there is there a population that's actually, if you were to strip it apart and look at the different parts of your organization, where does that health and wellness score drop? There is a generation that's asking for something different. Are we meeting their needs? Are we thinking about them when we're planning activities?
And that's if companies are even asking through a survey, or I've seen that decline a lot since COVID too, or the retrofitting. There's no such thing for culture or for events of a one size fits all. So I think that as we plan anything, having a menu of options will better serve, including the option not to attend without having any cultural demerit. And I'm also curious.
That's the be seen and be seen. Seen, you show up, you put your FaceTime in and you leave.
If you even have that option, I'm curious if we want to shift at some point to remote, hybrid, global, or geographically dispersed.
So this is so interesting about the Gen Z leading the way in not drinking, whether that's in general or at events or across the board. I don't know, but I recently did attend something where, and this is, by the way, not, unique to this particular gathering that I was attending, but it's very common, right? We walk in and immediately the servers come up with trays of a specialty cocktail. And that's it. No water, no juice, nothing else. And I was like, okay, so this is non-alcoholic or alcoholic? He's like, no, there's gin in it. But the name was so long and fancy, I kind of missed that part. But it's weird because I don't drink. I always kind of think that that's unfortunate that they don't offer something. And now I have to go stand in the bar line, which is extremely long, just to get like a soda water. I find that super irritating as a participant. What other people out there, are attending these gatherings that have different things going on, whether it's a dietary restriction or whatever, that it's not a generally crossed line sometimes, for people that think outside that box. And where do you draw the line? Because of budget constraints and because we can't be all things to all people. And I don't know the answer to any of that.
Well, the best way to save on budget is to save on booze.
There you go.
Libby's been with me when I've had my only option was to drink out of a water fountain. True story.
Yeah. I chose to also drink out of that water fountain because I didn't want any wine, water or wine.
I mean, you have to get home.
Kristen, I think that's really a good point to give people an option to opt out without any cultural, social blowback. Because I do, from different environments where I planned events, there were some places where it was totally understandable if you're not going to come and there's no pressure. And other places where if you did not come, that was silently marked by so many people. And if they were a peer, they were so annoyed. If they were, management, then they would ask you why you didn't come. Why weren't you there? You're not an active participant. You're not part of, even if you're doing work, you're not part of the group. And like Elise and Amy said, 99% of those events, revolved primarily around going to a bar, drinking, doing some happy hour, doing something like that. And I think one way to really help a culture in the events in a corporate setting, one of the many ways is to not require people to come to these and to make it totally fine if you weren't there. Because I think forcing people to go really adds to that uncomfortable, awkward vibe at an event. And really it permeates through someone's day-to-day experience within that company.
And recognizing the different places and spaces that people are at. So having worked at a lot of global diverse elements, so sending a celebration kit to the different offices or having desk drops of items, like let's go back to your Hawaiian theme, so that whether they were there or out of the office or chose not to come, there was still a bit of the festivity that was bestowed upon them individually. And then if it is something in person or even a remote attendance, I've seen a lot of those virtual happy hours that popped up. We haven't given enough thought to time zones, to caregivers in different aspects, to people with different medicines or mental well-being initiatives where that's not necessarily available or comfortable to them. Transportation, something Deli just said earlier. So sometimes the best kindness can be choice. And that's something that it's not a forcing function to have a social function.
Yeah, I like that.
Well, where do we go from here, ladies? Does anybody have any cringe-worthy stories of an event, office gathering gone really wrong?
Sure. What about you all? My pro tip is there are cameras in more places than you think. Public service announcement.
Mm-hmm. You're not wrong. Yeah. Well, and in addition to that, everybody is walking around with a camera in their pocket.
True story.
Right. And you don't know these days anymore. They're in their glasses. Like people can be recording audio and video in all kinds of places now, and you may have no idea that it's happening.
Our mantra used to be, because we were part of the event staff, assume everything is a hot mic, meaning once we walk out the doors, assume anything you say anywhere, bathrooms that's just a hot mic, and you don't want anything repeated, and probably repeated incorrectly or unfortunately correctly at another time. So
I think my cringiest office event moment, and I think that there were many of these types of events, but it was just, it's the feeling when you're there and it's kind of quiet, even if you have music playing, and you can just feel the vibe is just not there. People don't really want to be there. They feel like they're being forced to. They're kind of like, how long do I need to do this before I can go? And the events that I was a part of, either attending or planning, where that was the feeling, was always at a time when the people in the organization felt underappreciated in general. So it was a culture issue that really, I don't think there's anything I could have done to make that event feel really great for people other than give everybody, $100,000 or something. So it really, but I think those are the worst feelings when you're like, God, I just can't wait for this to be over so that everyone can just go back to their desk, and then I can apologize that, I wouldn't really, but then I can just pretend this never happened.
Libby's lost in thought. You can just see her playing it out. Right.
I'm just feeling it right now.
Replays of trauma.
It is
half trauma.
Like donuts and coffee or like a keychain are not going to fix a vibe that is an all-day vibe, a 24/7 vibe in a company.
And that underscores that events need to be purpose-driven, not performative. And for so long, there was this rhythm of the business with performative happy hours, all the things that really weren't aligned to what people needed. So the purpose-driven, not performative, I think Kristen's given us some good examples about that, and boundaries that respect time and well-being of employees, authentic interactions. And Kristen, I think you mentioned that inclusive factor of what do you do when they're remote. So how do you create an inclusive experience when everyone is not in the same place? I know I had a team reach out to me after the fact. We had a manager that loved to schedule meetings, and we had a global team, and the meetings would get scheduled at between 5 and 7 on a Friday for our European counterparts. And I finally just said, hey, I thought we had a meeting where we talked about respecting boundaries of the entire team. And I don't feel like we have to have these meetings at this time on Friday in the US, because now we're infringing on after hours, if we're going to do that, could we just not do it on Friday? And I remember them reaching out and saying, thank you so much for saying something, because it just felt like we had a conversation. We agreed as a team what our norms were going to be. And then this manager just kept scheduling because that was the only opening on their calendar. And I understand that, but what's the cost to the rest of the team if you're going to schedule these?
But the courage to say something, that's the missing ingredient in any gathering. And, we're talking about social activities, but an event can also be a standing team meeting, a quarterly town hall, things like that maybe don't have the merriment or the snacks, but still have exactly what you all have said, the cultural mirror. And if there's nobody willing or able to bring forward a courageous comment or reflection, then that cultural mirror is going to have a lot of cracks in it. One thing that we've seen, and Elise mentioned earlier, we all have cameras in our pockets. So in working in a lot of international and remote situations, we would pick a theme, and then the teams or the individuals could put together little vignettes or videos, stitch it together. It takes the same amount of time to plan a party as it is to, especially with today's software, to put something together. And then that can be shared on the day of the event, so that from Dallas to Dubai, people have participated and have been seen without having to be present and in command. So there's a lot of ways we can be creative and support the culture without being commanding to dictate a culture.
And I love too that Libby brought up that, I think you said donuts and coffee aren't going to fix a culture. And I love that this whole idea behind, you can't sort of fix that. You can't fix what people might have going on with just like, hey, we're going to throw this amazing party and it's going to be unifying and fantastic. And I have a joke with an institution that I belong to. It's like, whenever there's a major disruption and people are all up in arms about things, immediately, like, they'll rebrand. It's new logos, it's new this and that. And it's just funny. It's like, no, we're like totally putting the cart before the horse. Like, the problem is back here, and nothing is going to distract from that. That needs to be fixed. And a logo isn't going to do it.
Yeah. And it goes back to what Deli and Kristen said about, really figuring out what your goal is for your event. I mean, sometimes, honestly, the best option for an office event might be, hey, we want everybody to take 2 hours out of their day to go do something that's not work related. You're getting paid for that time. Take 2 hours. If you can't do it today, do it tomorrow, do it another day, but you need to block that time on your calendar and take care of something that you need to do during the day that you're not able to right now. Giving people a gift like that, like time that they can't, just, pull out of their, credit card or something they can't just buy on the internet, can be really valuable, I think.
I love it too. You actually reminded me of something that I loved from COVID when I was working in corporate. You have this budget where you plan events or whatever. Well, if you can't plan in-person events, how do you spend your budget? And the solution from the leadership was take this dollar amount divided by the team and then send everyone a note and say, our gift to you is $50, whatever it was, for you to spend on something that brings you joy. And for me, I don't like tchotchkes. I don't like swag that is not meaningful. It just, I don't want to walk around with the shirt that's branded for my company or my North Face jacket that's got a big company logo on it. And I love the jacket. I just would prefer that it not be logoed. So when they gave that gift of buy something that brings you joy, I bought personalized stationery, and that brought me so much joy. And then you turned in your expense. Well, then they had a party, a virtual holiday gathering where you got to share what brought you joy and how did you spend your money. And One, the fact that I got to buy personalized stationery on my company's dime as a gift to myself, that brought exponential amounts of joy. And then hearing what other people spent their money on was like this window into who are the people that I'm working with, that the things that it's not like we're talking about dirty secrets or anything. It's just something you wouldn't talk about necessarily that gives you a point of connection to the people that you're tasked with meeting the mission, making whatever it is happen at work. And I think I got more out of those 2 holiday parties where we bought something and then had an opportunity. You didn't have to, it was totally optional. You just got to share if you wanted to share. And I learned so much. I ended up inviting people to join me for things based on what I learned about them from what they purchased. So I loved that you brought that up.
Well, and my favorite, to go the other way and not talk about like the worst experiences we've had with office parties, my favorite office gatherings, parties, whatever you want to call them, is when the group is being of service to someone somewhere. And that could be packing food, that could be cleaning up sidewalks, that could be painting. It doesn't really matter. That could be writing letters. It doesn't really matter what it is. But when a group gets together and is of service to another group, I think that is where you'll have the most maximum impact.
100%.
Well, ladies, this has been, as usual, so much fun at the fun table, talking about all things events and community. And that is a wrap for this episode of Beats Working, winning the game of events. If you have an idea or you want to reach out, please email us at info@beatsworking.show. And remember, every detail matters, every moment counts, and no matter what, the show must go on. Thanks for listening to Beats Working, winning the game of events, where we explore what it takes to make moments unforgettable.
If you're leaving with a little more inspiration, a little more perspective, and a big side ache from all of the laughing at our funny jokes, then we've done our job.
Beats Working is a Work P2P production. If you've enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast platforms.
Your support helps us keep the magic going.